Now, the story first broke in the online publication, theintercept.com, and earlier I spoke to reporter Zaid Jilani, who broke the story.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it appears to be a hacking group, Global Leaks. They gave a number of media outlets these emails. They appear to be releasing them sort of in a pattern, so I think we do anticipate probably more emails being released. And it's sort of unclear who they are, but the embassy here in D.C. has said that they were hacked. So that's what we're referring to the emails as hacked and not leaked. But yeah, we don't know exactly the identity of the people who did the hacking. There's been some suggestion that it may be Russian-linked because some of the media outlets received emails from Russian-linked email accounts. But again, we focus more on the content, and we don't know entirely the identity of who's been releasing them.
And Zaid, what do the emails tell us? Why are they significant?
Well, they're significant because for a long time we've seen sort of allegations or sort of been suggested that there's a growing axis between certain Gulf countries, including Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Israel. And what these emails show is that there's actually a very concerted effort by the diplomatic presence here in D.C. to work with pro-Israel organizations and neoconservative right-wing organizations to sort of place a certain narrative on other countries and to coordinate on policy on other countries, particularly when it comes to pushing back on Iran and pushing back on Qatar.
Will there be embarrassment, Zaid, over the fact that these emails have been leaked? I think your tweet said Washington's elite collectively gasped at the news.
Well, I think there's a lot of embarrassment because, again, I don't think that the Emirates wants to let its own people know that it's working so closely with a think tank that's funded by Sheldon Adelson, right? You know, Sheldon Adelson is a very right-wing figure in the United States, very close ally of both Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, someone who said we should drop a nuclear bomb in Iran at one point. And, you know, he basically puts up this think tank, and this ambassador is very close to them. He's coordinating with them on sort of creating lists of companies that invest in both the Emirates and Iran to try to pressure those companies to get out of Iran. They're coordinating on sort of press hits against Qatar. I mean, I don't think that the Emirates wants its own people to know that they're coordinating with such harsh right-wing elements here in the United States behind closed doors. So I do think it could be very embarrassing in their country because again, it's not a democratic country, and they probably don't discuss these things with their people before doing them.
And Zaid, it's interesting that the focus seems to be, and I've got some notes in front of me about this proposed agenda for the Foundation for Defence of Democracy's exchange, which is taking part, I believe, in just a couple of weeks' time in June. And it looks to be sort of building the case against Qatar, finding a way to kind of downgrade its image, its importance, its journalism. You know, why? What's the benefit?
I mean, part of the benefit, honestly, is the network that I'm on, right? So on the agenda, they actually discussed sort of recasting Al Jazeera as sort of a disruptive network, a network that's causing instability and sort of chaos rather than a network that's doing, what's recognized as good journalism. And there's also other issues discussed in that agenda. For instance, they want to talk about ways to impact the internal situation in Iran, and ironically, including cyber tools, which would be cyber warfare, which seems like what may just have happened to the Emirates embassy here in D.C.
Are we to believe, Zaid, that this kind of concerted effort, this network to change people's opinion of Qatar, Kuwait, can it actually change or affect policy?
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly the point. I mean, I think at one point in these emails they had discussed sort of antagonism towards the U.S. military base in Qatar. You know, the Emirates doesn't appreciate that relationship. They don't appreciate Al Jazeera, and of course they want to see much more of an escalation against Iran, particularly by Donald Trump, including probably more sanctions or other forms of intervention in Iran. So I think that's exactly the reason they formed this relationship with neoconservative think tanks, why they're discussing things with former Bush administration officials and lobbyists and consultants like Bob Gates, a former Secretary of Defense, because this is how you play the influence game in Washington. You form relationships with people who are one step removed from the government but who have influence over the government. That way you can conceal what you're doing, and that way also you can use your money as leverage because these people have, they can take unlimited amounts of money, for instance, from the Emirates for their think tank or for their consultancy groups, which if you're in the government, you're not allowed to do.
Well, I'm now joined via Skype by David Hurst.